The mistake was accepting the shift. Amina Okafor knew it the moment she walked through the service entrance of the Han Riverview Pavilion and saw the biometric scanner beside the staff lockers. Quiet dinners didn't require fingerprint access. But her account balance had decided for her 3 days ago, and now she was here, tying the plain black ribbon at the back of her uniform while the other servers moved in synchronized silence around her. In Korea, service was choreography. Precision mattered more than personality. That discipline had once saved her life. It had also cost her everything. She checked her reflection in the narrow mirror, hair pulled back, face neutral, posture correct. The uniform fits well enough. Anonymous enough. Safe enough. She followed the line of servers through the corridor, keeping her breathing steady, her gaze lowered. The dinner would be over in 3 hours. She would collect her pay. She would go home. That was the plan. Then she saw him. The dinner was meant to be quiet. That was what the agency had told her when they sent the invitation, marked urgent, premium pay, short notice. Amina had learned not to trust agencies that sent invitations instead of shift confirmations, but she had also learned that survival required compromises. So she came. The Han Riverview Pavilion sat in Seong-Sudong, tucked between converted factories and luxury high-rises where old money met new discretion. Politicians dined here. Chaebol heirs negotiated here. Foreign investors made deals behind soundproof glass and linen-covered walls. The staff lined up outside the private hall, posture neutral, eyes lowered. 12 servers. 4 sommeliers. 2 security personnel in tailored suits are standing by the exits. The maitre d' reviewed the evening's protocol in rapid Korean. Amina caught most of it. 3 years in Seoul had sharpened her comprehension, though her accent still marked her as foreign. She adjusted the tray in her hands and waited for the doors to open. That was when she saw Park Min-jae. Some humiliations leave a physical memory. A tightening behind the eyes. A hollowing in the chest. Park had not changed. Same immaculate suit. Same faint smile that never reached his eyes. Same habit of surveying a room as if everything in it, including people, were already owned. Her former employer. Her former judge. The man who had fired her publicly 3 years ago in front of dinner guests, accusing her of theft, could never prove it. Amina did not react. She adjusted her grip on the tray and stepped forward when signaled. The private hall was elegant in the way expensive spaces pretended not to be. Low lighting. Minimalist arrangements. A single long table set for 18 guests. Park sat near the center, already engaged in conversation with a woman wearing understated jewelry and perfect posture. He gestured casually as he spoke, comfortable in his authority. Amina moved along the perimeter, serving water, refilling glasses. She kept her movements efficient, her expression blank. He noticed her halfway through the first course. Recognition flickered across his face. Then satisfaction. He said her name slowly, incorrectly, loudly enough for the nearest guests to hear. Amina, isn't it? The conversation around him slowed. She bowed slightly. Yes, sir. You look the same, Park said, tilting his head as if studying something mildly interesting. I see you found work suitable to your talents. A few guests smiled politely. One woman glanced away. Humiliation in Korea was rarely loud. It was surgical. Amina said nothing. Silence was safer than defense. Park leaned back in his chair, swirling wine in his glass. Do you still faint under pressure? Or have you learned to endure? Her fingers tightened around the tray. She steadied her breathing. She did not look at him. I'm here to serve dinner, sir. Of course, Park said lightly. That's what you're good at. Laughter, soft, uncertain, rippled across the nearby seats. Amina felt the heat behind her ribs but kept her face neutral. She had survived worse. She could survive this. She turned to continue her route. That was when the doors opened. Not dramatically. No announcement. No raised voices. Just the subtle shift of attention that happens when someone important enters a room that already believes itself powerful. The guards straightened. The maitre d' turned instantly, bowing low. Conversations paused mid-sentence. A man stepped inside. Tall. Composed. Wearing a charcoal suit without visible branding. No jewelry. No entourage. His presence wasn't loud. It was controlled. He scanned the room once, gaze steady and deliberate. Then his eyes stopped. On Amina. She felt it before she saw him fully. That instinctive awareness of being observed, not as an object, but as a variable in an equation. He did not smile. He did not react. He walked to the empty seat at the head of the table. Park stood halfway, startled. Chairman Han Jun-suk, we weren't told. The man raised one hand. Park stopped speaking. I was delayed, the man said calmly. His voice was low, even, carrying authority without effort. Continue. Park sat. Something in the room shifted. Conversations resumed, but quieter now. More careful. Amina remained standing near the service station, tray still balanced. Han looked at her again. Not in her uniform. At her face. Her hands. The way she held herself. Why are you standing? He asked. She blinked. Sir, I was assigned to. She was just leaving, Park said quickly, voice tight. Old staff. Not important. Han did not look at Park. She stays, he said. The words landed without negotiation. Amina placed her tray down slowly, heart steady despite the sudden awareness that something had shifted. She served in silence for the rest of the evening. But as she moved, she felt it. Attention without threat. Observation without hunger. No one announced him. And yet, everyone knew someone important had arrived. Han Jun-suk did not speak again for the remainder of the dinner. He ate sparingly. Listened more than he contributed. When he did speak, it was brief, a question, a clarification, never an explanation. Amina watched him from the edges of the room. She had learned to read power during her years working in elite Korean households. Power announced itself in different ways. Some people demanded attention. Others simply held it. Han did not demand. He absorbed. Park had resumed conversation after the initial interruption, but his posture had changed. Shoulders tighter. Gestures smaller. He glanced toward Han twice during the second course, as if checking whether he was still being observed. He was. Amina refilled wine glasses, cleared plates, and moved through her choreography. But she felt the weight of Han's attention tracking her movements. Not invasive, not predatory, just present. It unnerved her more than Park's cruelty had. Cruelty she understood. Cruelty had rules. This did not. Near the end of the meal, one of the guests, a man in his 50s with silver-rimmed glasses and the posture of someone accustomed to being obeyed, leaned toward Han. Chairman Han, we weren't expecting you tonight. Is there something specific you wanted to discuss? Han set down his chopsticks with precision. I came to observe, he said. The man smiled uncertainly. Observe what? Han did not answer immediately. He looked across the table, gaze moving from face to face, pausing briefly on Park. Behavior, Han said finally. The silence that followed was not comfortable. Park shifted in his seat. The woman beside him touched her napkin to her lips. The man with silver glasses cleared his throat but did not press further. Amina collected empty glasses near the service station and felt the tension coil tighter around the room. Han rose without warning. The table quieted instantly. Thank you for the meal, he said, bowing slightly. A gesture of courtesy, not deference. I'll leave you to continue. He turned toward the exit. Then he paused. His gaze found Amina again. Not a glance. A deliberate acknowledgement. He did not smile. Did not speak. He simply looked at her as if confirming something he had already decided. Then he left. The room exhaled. Conversations resumed, louder now, as if volume could erase the discomfort. Park laughed at something the woman beside him said, but the sound was forced. Amina remained still, tray in hand, trying to understand what had just happened. She had been seen. Not dismissed. Not humiliated. Seen. That was more dangerous than anything Park had said. The staff was dismissed an hour later. Amina changed out of her uniform in the narrow locker room, folding it carefully before placing it in her bag. The other servers spoke quietly among themselves, but no one addressed her directly. She preferred it that way. She collected her envelope from the manager, cash, as agreed, and walked toward the service exit. That was when she saw it. A folded card was resting on the narrow counter beside her locker. Plain. No logo. No decoration. She picked it up slowly. Inside, written in neat Hangul, was a name. Han Jun-suk. And beneath it, in smaller script, tomorrow, 6 a.m. Cheonggyecheon. No explanation. No request. Just time and place. Amina stared at the card for a long moment. She should throw it away. She should leave and never think about this night again. She folded the card carefully and slipped it into her pocket. Outside, Seoul's lights blurred against the dark river. Traffic moved in steady streams. The city never stopped. Neither did the questions. He didn't speak to her. But somehow, he had already changed her position in the room. Amina did not sleep. She sat by the narrow window of her Gazawan room, a space barely large enough for a bed, a desk, and a single shelf, and watched the city lights blur into dawn. The card sat on the desk beside her phone. She had read it a dozen times, searching for meaning in the clean strokes of ink, the precision of the handwriting, the deliberate absence of explanation. Han Jun-suk wanted to meet her. At Cheonggyecheon Stream. At 6 in the morning. She should not go. Every instinct she had developed over 3 years of survival in Seoul told her that powerful men who left cards without explanations were dangerous in ways she could not afford to navigate. But she also knew that refusing was not the same as safety. He had already seen her. Already shifted something in the room last night. Already stopped Park's humiliation without speaking a word. Men like that did not leave cards by accident. At 5:30, she rose and dressed in plain clothes. Dark jeans, a gray sweater, comfortable shoes. She pulled her hair back and checked her reflection. Anonymous enough. She left before she could change her mind. Cheonggyecheon at dawn was all stone paths and murmuring water, the city not yet awake. Runners passed without looking. Office workers hurried by with coffee in hand, earbuds in, eyes on screens. Amina walked slowly along the stream, hands in her pockets, breath visible in the cold air. She found him near the bridge. Han stood with his back to the water, coat buttoned, hands empty. He was not looking at his phone. Not waiting impatiently. Just standing. He noticed her approach and straightened slightly. "You came," he said. "You didn't give me much choice," Amina replied quietly. "You could have ignored the card." "Could I?" Han studied her for a moment, then gestured toward the path. "Walk with me." She hesitated, then fell into step beside him. They walked in silence for a full minute before Han spoke. "You worked for Park Min-jae for 4 years," he said. Not a question. Amina kept her gaze forward. "Yes. You were dismissed after an accusation that was never proven." Her breath stilled. "How do you know that?" "I asked," Han said simply. "Why?" He did not answer immediately. They passed beneath a bridge, footsteps echoing briefly against concrete. "You disappeared from registered employment for 11 months after that," Han continued. "You sent money during that time. To Busan. Medical expenses." Amina stopped walking. Han stopped with her. "Why do you know this?" she asked again, voice tighter now. Han met her eyes. "Because I needed to understand who you are." "And who am I?" "Someone who endures," he said. "Someone who doesn't break under pressure. Someone Park Min-jae is still afraid of." That last part was impossible. Amina almost laughed. "Park isn't afraid of me. He humiliated me last night." "He tried to," Han corrected. "But you didn't react." That unsettled him more than any response would have. She studied Han's face, searching for deception, for manipulation, for whatever angle he was working. She found only calm certainty. "What do you want from me?" she asked. "Your skills," Han said. "Not your loyalty. Not your affection. Not your trust. Your skills." "What kind?" she asked carefully. Discretion, Han replied. Judgment. The ability to remain calm when powerful people behave badly. Amina felt something cold settle in her chest. And why would I give you those things? Han reached into his coat and withdrew a sealed envelope. He held it out to her. Read this, he said. Then decide. She took the envelope slowly, feeling its weight. What is it? Information, Han said. About what I've already done. And what I'm offering. He stepped back. You don't owe me an answer today, he continued. But you will need to decide soon. Why me? Amina asked. The question came out sharper than she intended. Han looked at her for a long moment. Because you know what it costs to survive, he said. And because I need someone who understands consequences. He turned and walked back toward the street, leaving her standing beside the stream with the envelope in her hands. She watched him disappear into the morning crowd. Then she looked down at the envelope. He didn't ask her to trust him. He asked her to decide. Amina did not open the envelope until she was home. She sat at the narrow desk in her Gazawan room, the envelope resting on the surface between her and the window, as if proximity to escape might make whatever was inside less dangerous. She had survived 3 years in Seoul by understanding what she could control and what she could not. This felt like neither. Finally, she broke the seal. Inside were medical documents. She recognized the hospital letterhead immediately. Severance Hospital, one of the best in Seoul. The kind of place she had researched extensively a year ago, when her mother's condition had worsened, and the doctors in Busan had recommended specialists she could not afford. Her hands steadied as she read. Patient name: Okafor Chinyu. Treatment: initiated. Status: ongoing care, full coverage approved. Payment: settled in full. Amina read the line again. Settled in full. Her mother's treatment. The chemotherapy she had been trying to save for. The consultations that cost more than Amina earned in 6 months. Paid. She flipped through the attached pages, treatment schedules, medication protocols, follow-up appointments. Everything detailed. Everything arranged. No signature at the bottom. No explanation. Just a handwritten note on the final page in the same neat script from the card. Your mother is receiving care. You are free to choose. Amina set the documents down carefully. Her vision blurred briefly, then sharpened. She stood and paced the small room, trying to process what this meant. Han Jun-suk had paid for her mother's treatment. Without asking. Without negotiating. Without demanding anything in return. Except he had. Because now, walking away meant undoing what he had already done. It meant understanding that someone had acted on her behalf while she had been powerless to stop it. Gratitude felt dangerous. Autonomy felt impossible. She sat back down and stared at the documents. Her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. I didn't do this to trap you. I did it because it needed to be done. What happens next is your choice. Amina read the message 3 times. She did not respond. Instead, she pulled up her banking app and checked her account balance. The money she had been saving, slowly, painfully, was still there. Untouched. Which meant Han had not taken anything from her. He had simply removed the obstacle she had been fighting against for a year. She looked at the medical documents again. Her mother was being treated. The debt was paid. But the cost was still unknown. She picked up her phone and typed, "We need to talk." The response came immediately. Tomorrow. Same place. Same time. Amina set the phone down and looked out the window at the city beyond. Someone had already acted on her behalf, and she didn't know the cost. The rumor spread before the announcement. Korean high society moved fast when bored, and Han Jun-suk, chairman of Hanbit Group, one of the country's most quietly powerful conglomerates, rarely provided material for speculation. Until now. Amina first heard about it from another server at the agency. Did you see the news? The woman asked during a rare shared shift at a corporate luncheon in Gangnam. Amina had not. Han Jun-suk is engaged, the woman continued, scrolling through her phone. No photos yet. They're keeping her identity private. Amina's stomach tightened. When was it announced? She asked carefully. This morning. At some charity auction at the National Museum. Very exclusive. No press allowed, but people are talking. Amina finished her shift in silence. When she got home, she found 3 missed calls from the same unknown number. Han's number. She called back. He answered on the first ring. We need to meet, he said. No preamble. I know, Amina replied. I heard. There was a pause. Tonight, Han said. I'll send a car. No, Amina said firmly. I'll meet you. Same place. It's not safe. I'll meet you, she repeated. Or I don't come at all. Another pause. Chonggyecheon. 8 o'clock. The call ended. Han was already waiting when she arrived. The stream was quieter at night, lit by soft pathway lights and the glow of the city above. Fewer people. More shadows. Amina walked directly to him, stopping just outside arm's reach. You used my name, she said. No accusation. Just fact. Han did not deny it. Yes. Without asking. Yes. Why? Han looked at her steadily. Because I needed protection. And so did you. Amina felt anger rise clean, sharp, clarifying. From whom? Park, Han said. And others who would move if they believed you were unclaimed. The word landed like a stone. Unclaimed. I am not property, Amina said quietly. I know, Han replied. That's why I chose you. She stared at him. This is not a relationship. No, Han agreed. It's a shield. And when it stops being useful, then you walk away, Han said. With resources. With safety. With proof that you were never trapped. Amina studied his face, searching for the lie. And what do you get? She asked. Han was quiet for a long moment. Time, he said finally. And leverage. The honesty was unsettling. Most powerful men lied reflexively. Han simply stated terms. What are the conditions? Amina asked. You appear beside me at select events. Foundation dinners. Memorial ceremonies. Gatherings where old money expects tradition. And privately? Nothing, Han said. No lies about your work. No performance. No touching unless you consent. Amina felt the weight of the decision pressing down. She could refuse. She could walk away right now and never see him again. But her mother's treatment was already underway. Park had already been silenced at that dinner. And she was already standing in the middle of something she did not fully understand. I have conditions, she said. Han nodded. I expected you would. No lies about my work, Amina repeated. No touching. No performance. And if I ask a question, you answer truthfully. Agreed. And if I want out, you tell me, Han said. And I arrange your exit. She studied him for another moment. Then she extended her hand. Han looked at it, then took it carefully. His grip was firm. Brief. One more thing, Amina said. Yes. Why me? She asked again. The real reason. Han released her hand. Because you survived humiliation without losing yourself, he said. And because when this collapses, I need someone who won't pretend innocence. The words settled between them. Somewhere in the distance, sirens wailed faintly. Amina looked at the city lights reflected in the stream. When does this start? She asked. It already has, Han said. She wasn't his partner. She was his shield. The first event was a foundation dinner at the Shilla Hotel. Han sent a car, not a demand this time, but an offer she accepted because navigating Seoul's elite geography alone would mark her as out of place before she even arrived. The driver was professional, silent. He delivered her to a private entrance where a woman in a tailored suit waited with a garment bag. From Chairman Han, the woman said, bowing slightly. He thought you might prefer options. Inside were 3 dresses. Simple, elegant, expensive in ways that didn't announce themselves. Amina chose the darkest one, charcoal silk that moved like water, and changed in the hotel's private preparation room. When she emerged, Han was waiting in the corridor. He looked at her once, expression unchanged. "Good," he said. "Not beautiful. Not stunning. Good." It was the most honest compliment she had ever received. They entered the hall together. The dinner was smaller than the one at Han Riverview, perhaps 40 guests, all seated at round tables arranged with geometric precision. Soft classical music. Waiters moving like synchronized shadows. Han placed his hand lightly at the small of her back as they approached their table, a gesture of guidance, not possession. She felt the controlled pressure, the awareness that he was creating a visible boundary for others to observe. This is where she stands. This is who she is with. Several guests turned to look. Whispers followed, polite, curious, carefully neutral. Han did not introduce her to the table. He simply pulled out her chair and waited until she sat before taking his own seat. The message was clear. She did not need an introduction. Her presence was explanation enough. Throughout the meal, Amina observed. Han spoke when spoken to. Listened more than he contributed. When he did engage, his questions were precise, his statements carefully constructed. He never interrupted, never raised his voice, never performed authority. And yet, conversations bent toward him like light through a lens. She watched a man in his 60s, someone she later learned was a former minister, try to dominate a discussion about urban development policy. Han waited until the man finished, then asked a single question. Who benefits? The man hesitated. Well, the city, obviously. Who specifically? Han pressed. Not aggressive. Just present. The conversation shifted. By the end of the exchange, the former minister was defending a position he hadn't intended to take, and Han had revealed 3 conflicts of interest without making a single accusation. Amina felt something sharp and cold settle in her understanding. This was how power actually operated. Not through spectacle. Through questions no one wanted to answer. Halfway through the evening, a woman approached their table, mid-40s, wearing pearls, and the expression of someone accustomed to getting information. "Chairman Han," she said warmly. "How lovely to see you." Han stood politely. "Ms. Beck." The woman's gaze shifted to Amina. "And you must be the mysterious fiancé everyone is talking about." Amina felt the weight of scrutiny but kept her expression neutral. "Amina Okafor," she said, not offering more. Ms. Beck smiled. "Nigerian." "Yes. How did you meet?" Han answered before Amina could. "Through work." It was vague enough to mean anything, specific enough to sound true. Ms. Beck waited for elaboration. None came. "Well," she said finally, "welcome to Seoul's social season. It can be challenging for newcomers." "I've been here 3 years," Amina replied evenly. The woman's smile tightened. "Of course. Still, I'm sure Chairman Han will guide you through the more complicated aspects." Han inclined his head slightly. "Ms. Beck, if you'll excuse us." It wasn't a question. The woman departed. Amina waited until she was out of earshot. Complicated aspects. "She's measuring whether you'll be useful or disposable," Han said quietly. "She's already decided you're neither." "How do you know?" "Because she's still wondering." The evening ended without incident. As they left, Amina noticed Park Min-jae standing near the exit, engaged in conversation with 2 other men. He saw her. Their eyes met briefly. Park's expression remained pleasant, but his posture changed, shoulders pulling back, chin lifting slightly. He was watching. Han noticed. He said nothing, but his hand returned to the small of her back as they passed. The message was clear. In the car afterward, Amina stared out the window at Seoul's lights. "Everyone at that dinner was measuring me," she said. "Yes. For what?" Han was quiet for a moment. "For whether you're an opportunity," he said, "or a weakness." Amina turned to look at him. "And which am I?" Han met her gaze. "That depends on what you decide to become." Everyone wanted something from her. No one would say what. The second event was a memorial ceremony at Jogi Temple. Han had explained it briefly, a gathering to honor the founder of one of Korea's oldest business families. Attendance was expected. Absence would be noted. Amina wore a simple black dress and minimal jewelry. They arrived early, before the crowds, and walked through the temple grounds in silence. Incense hung in the air. Monks moved quietly between buildings. The city's noise felt distant here, muted. Han stopped near a stone lantern. After the ceremony, people will approach you, he said. Some will ask questions. Some will make offers. What kind of offers? Information, Han said. Connections. Opportunities to be helpful. Should I accept? No, Han replied. But be polite when you decline. Amina studied his face. You're teaching me how to refuse without offending. Yes. Why? Because refusal is the most valuable skill in this world, Han said. And most people never learn it. The ceremony was formal, restrained. Speeches were brief. Bows were precise. Grief was performed with the same choreography as service. Afterward, guests gathered in the temple's courtyard for tea. Amina stood near the edge, observing. That was when Park Min-jae appeared beside her. He did not announce himself. Just materialized at her shoulder, holding a small cup of tea, with a pleasant smile. Amina, he said quietly. Enjoying your new life? She turned to face him, keeping her voice level. Mr. Park. You've risen quickly, Park continued, gaze drifting toward where Han stood across the courtyard, engaged in conversation with an elderly woman. From server to fiancé. Quite the transformation. Is there something you need? Amina asked. Park smiled. Just offering friendly advice. Men like Han Jun-suk don't keep tools once they dull. The word landed deliberately. Tools. I'm not your concern, Amina replied. Perhaps, Park said. But I know how this works. You think you're protected now. You think his name means safety. He sipped his tea. It doesn't. It means you're useful. And usefulness expires. Amina felt the anger rise, but kept it contained. Thank you for your concern. I'll manage. Park leaned closer, voice dropping. You always were stubborn. I admired that about you, before you became a liability. I was never a liability, Amina said. I was inconvenient. Park's smile faded slightly. Careful. Inconvenience can become dangerous very quickly. He stepped back, bowing politely as if they had simply exchanged pleasantries. Enjoy the rest of your evening, he said. Then he walked away. Amina remained still, processing the conversation. Threat or warning? Both, probably. She found Han 15 minutes later, after the guests had begun dispersing. Park spoke to me, she said. Han's expression did not change. What did he say? That I'm useful until I'm not. That your protection expires. Did he threaten you directly? No, Amina admitted. But he wanted me to understand something. That he's watching, Han said. Yes. Han was quiet for a long moment, gaze distant. He's been watching since the first dinner, he said finally. This changes nothing. Should I be worried? Han looked at her directly. You should be aware. There's a difference. And you? Amina asked. Are you worried? Han's jaw tightened slightly, the first visible sign of tension she had seen from him. Park moves when he feels cornered, Han said. Right now, he's trying to determine whether you're a weakness he can exploit. Am I? Han met her eyes. Not if you remain exactly who you are. The answer settled uneasily. They walked back to the car in silence. As they drove through Seoul's evening traffic, Amina replayed Park's words. Usefulness expires. She glanced at Han, who sat beside her, gaze fixed on something beyond the window. What did you do when Park threatened you before? She asked. Han did not look at her. I listened, he said, without interrupting. And then I said nothing at all. The response chilled her more than any threat could have. Han listened without interrupting, and said nothing at all. The news broke 3 days later. Amina was folding laundry in her Gazawan when her phone buzzed with a news alert. Former executive Park Min-jae found unresponsive at private dinner. Her hands stilled. She opened the article. Park Min-jae, 54, former vice president of Samil Industries, had collapsed during a private dinner in Apgujeong. He was pronounced dead at the scene. Preliminary reports indicated heart failure. An investigation was pending but not expected to reveal foul play. The article included a photo of Park in a suit, smiling at some corporate event, looking healthy and confident. Amina read the article twice. Heart failure. Private dinner. No witnesses are coming forward. She set her phone down carefully and stared at the wall. Coincidence felt impossible. She did not call Han. She waited. He contacted her first, an hour later. We need to talk. Not over the phone. She met him at a tea house in Samcheong-dong, tucked away from the main streets, the kind of place where privacy was currency. Han was already seated when she arrived, a pot of tea on the low table between them. She sat across from him and did not wait for a preamble. Did you know, she asked, that he would collapse? Han said, no. But you knew something would happen. Han poured tea into both cups with steady hands. I knew he was being investigated. Financial irregularities. Connections to offshore accounts. And his death is convenient, Han admitted. The honesty was worse than a lie would have been. Amina felt something cold settle in her chest. Did you order it? No. Did you stop it? Han met her eyes. No. The silence between them stretched. For the first time, Amina said quietly, I'm wondering if silence is also a crime. Han did not defend himself. He simply sat with the accusation. Finally he spoke. You're in deeper than you realize, he said. Park wasn't acting alone. He was moving money for people who don't appear in public records. Names will surface. Investigators will ask questions. About him or about you? Both, Han said. And about anyone associated with either of us. Amina felt the weight of implication settle. Why are you telling me this? Because you need to understand what comes next, Han said. Authorities will investigate quietly. They'll interview people who attended the dinner. They'll examine financial records. They'll look for connections. And they'll find me. Yes. Amina stared at the tea in her cup, watching steam rise. What do you want me to do? She asked. Nothing yet, Han said. But soon you'll have a choice. What kind of choice? Han leaned forward slightly. To testify about what you know, or to disappear before they ask. The options landed like stones. And if I testify? You become a witness, Han said. Protected, but scrutinized. Everything about your life will be examined. Your history with Park. Your relationship with me. Your mother's treatment. And if I disappear? You walk away clean, Han said. New identity. New city. Resources to start over. Amina felt nausea rise. You're asking me to choose between exposure and erasure. I'm telling you what's possible, Han corrected. What you choose is yours alone. She looked at him directly. What do you want me to choose? Han was quiet for a long moment. I want you to choose what you can live with, he said finally. Because either path will cost you. And I won't pretend otherwise. Amina stood slowly. I need time, she said. You have 3 days, Han replied. After that, the choice will be made for you. She walked out of the tea house into the narrow street beyond. Seoul's evening air was cold against her face. She pulled her coat tighter and walked without direction, trying to process what had just been confirmed. Park Min-jae was dead. Conveniently. Quietly. And she was standing in the center of something that had already claimed one life. For the first time, she wondered if silence was also a crime. Amina did not sleep for 2 nights. She walked Seoul streets after dark. Itaewon, Hongdae, along the river where the city's lights reflected in black water. She moved through crowds of people living ordinary lives, carrying ordinary problems, and felt the distance between their world and hers growing wider. On the third morning, she called Han. "I need to know everything," she said. "No careful explanations. No protected information. Everything." There was a pause. "Meet me," Han said. "I'll send the location." The location was a private office in Gangnam, high enough that souls spread out below like a circuit board of light and shadow. Han stood by the window when she entered, hands behind his back. He turned as she closed the door. "Sit," he said, gesturing to the chairs arranged near a low table. Amina remained standing. "I'm not here for comfort. I'm here for truth." Han studied her for a moment, then nodded. Park Min-jae was part of a network, he began. 6 executives across 3 industries: pharmaceuticals, construction, and defense manufacturing. They moved money through shell companies in Singapore and Hong Kong, laundering proceeds from price-fixing schemes, bribery, and government contract manipulation. "How long?" Amina asked. "At least 8 years, Han said. "Probably longer." "And you knew?" "I suspected," Han corrected. "I had pieces, not proof. Until Park made a mistake," Han said. "He approached someone he thought was sympathetic. That person came to me instead." Amina felt the architecture of conspiracy taking shape. "What did you do?" "I gathered evidence," Han said. "Quietly. Through channels that wouldn't alert the network. Financial records, communication logs, travel patterns." "And then Park died," Amina said. Han's expression remained neutral. "Yes. Did someone in the network kill him?" "Possibly," Han said. "Or someone outside it who stood to benefit from his silence." "Which includes you." "Yes." The admission sat heavily between them. Amina walked to the window and looked down at the city below. "Why am I involved in this?" "Because you worked for Park," Han said. "You saw how his household operated. You knew his schedules, his contacts, his routines. And when he fired you, you disappeared for 11 months. "I was caring for my mother." "I know," Han said. "But the investigators won't assume that. They'll wonder what you saw. What do you know? Why did you leave so suddenly?" Amina turned to face him. "So I'm either a witness or a suspect." "Your leverage," Han said quietly. "For whoever gets to you first." The reality settled like frost. "What exactly are you offering me?" Amina asked. Han moved away from the window and stood across from her, maintaining distance. "If you testify," he said, "I can arrange protection. Legal representation. A controlled narrative that positions you as a former employee who recognized irregularities but lacked proof. And the truth will be shaped carefully," Han said. "You'll tell what you know without implicating yourself." "And if I disappear?" "New identity. New country if you want it. Your mother's care continues regardless. You walk away clean, and this part of your life ends." Amina felt the weight of both options pressing down. "What happens to you?" she asked. "I continue," Han said simply. "The investigation proceeds. Eventually, the network collapses or adapts. Either way, it's not your concern. Unless I testify. Then it becomes my concern." "Yes." Amina looked at him directly. "Why did you really choose me? Not the version you've told me before. The actual reason." Han was silent for a long moment. "Because you survived humiliation without losing yourself," he said finally. "And because when this collapses, I need someone who won't pretend innocence. Someone who understands that power is always a transaction. That safety is temporary. That consequences are inevitable." He paused. "I needed someone who could make the hard choice," he continued. "Not the right one. Just the one they could live with." The honesty was brutal. Amina felt something crack inside her. Not breaking, but shifting. "You're not protecting me," she said quietly. "You're positioning me." "Yes. And if I refuse both options?" "Then you make yourself a target without defense," Han said. And I can't help you. Amina walked back to the window and stared out at Seoul's sprawl. Somewhere down there, investigators were already asking questions. Somewhere, the network was regrouping. Somewhere, her mother was receiving treatment she could never have afforded. Every path had been purchased with someone else's decision. Now she had to make her own. I need 48 hours, she said. Han nodded. You have them. And if I ask you a question, you answer truthfully. Yes. She turned to face him. Did you arrange Park's death? Han met her eyes without hesitation. No, he said. But I would have if I thought it necessary. The distinction was meaningless. And that was the point. I'll contact you when I decide, Amina said. She walked toward the door. Han's voice stopped her. Amina. She turned. Whichever choice you make, he said quietly, I won't judge it. And I won't use it against you. She studied his face, searching for deception. She found only certainty. You already have, she said. Then she left. He didn't ask what she wanted. He asked what she could live with. 48 hours became 47. Amina spent the first day walking. She moved through Seoul's neighborhoods without a destination. Past markets where vendors called out prices, through parks where children played, along streets where ordinary life continued regardless of what was collapsing in the shadows. She called her mother that evening. The conversation was brief. Her mother sounded stronger, clearer. The treatment was working. She asked when Amina would visit. Soon, Amina promised. After the call ended, she sat in her small room and stared at nothing. The second day, she researched. She found articles about the investigation, carefully worded, vague, mentioning no names but describing irregularities in several major contracts. Financial journalists were beginning to ask questions. Opposition politicians were calling for transparency. The pressure was building. Park's death had accelerated something, not stopped it. By the evening of the second day, Amina had not decided. She had only clarified what both choices meant. Testifying meant becoming visible. It meant standing in rooms where powerful people would measure her words, search for weakness, and determine whether she was useful or dangerous. It meant accepting that she would always be the woman who testified. That her life would be divided into before and after this moment. Disappearing meant erasing herself. It meant walking away from Seoul, from the version of herself she had built here, from the possibility that she could ever return without fear. It meant accepting that survival sometimes required abandonment. Neither choice was clean. Neither choice was safe. Both would cost her. On the 48th hour, Han called. Have you decided? He asked. Amina stood by her window, watching rain begin to fall over Seoul. I need to ask you something first, she said. Go ahead. If I testify, she said slowly, and the investigation follows the evidence where it leads, will it reach you? Han was quiet for a moment. Eventually, he said. Yes. And you're willing to accept that? I'm willing to accept consequences, Han replied. That's different from wanting them. Amina closed her eyes. What happens to us? This arrangement we made. That depends on you, Han said. The engagement can continue as protection. Or it can end quietly. And if I disappear? It ends, Han said simply. You become someone I used to know. The finality in his voice was not cruel, just honest. Amina opened her eyes and watched rain streak down the window. I haven't decided, she said. You have 6 hours, Han replied. After that, I need to move forward with or without your answer. And if I don't answer at all? Then you've chosen the third option, Han said. Remaining exactly where you are and hoping the investigators don't come. Is that possible? No, Han said. But people choose impossible things when the alternatives are worse. Amina felt the weight of truth in that. I'll call you, she said. Amina, Han said, his voice quieter now. Whichever path you take, you deserve to know something. What? You were never just a shield, he said. You were the only person I trusted to understand what I was actually offering. The admission landed unexpectedly. Which was? Amina asked. A choice, Han said. In a world where most people never get one. The line went silent. Then Han spoke again. 6 hours, he said. The call ended. Amina stood by the window as rain intensified, blurring Seoul's lights into watercolor streaks. She thought about Park Min-jae, who had humiliated her 3 years ago and died 3 days ago. She thought about her mother in Busan, receiving treatment she could never have afforded. She thought about Han Jun-suk, who had offered protection that looked like positioning and honesty that felt like manipulation. She thought about the woman she had been when she first arrived in Seoul, exhausted, uncertain, carrying hope like fragile cargo. And she thought about the woman she was now standing in the center of something vast and dangerous, holding power she had never asked for. The engagement remained public but undefined. The investigation continued in the background, gathering momentum. And Amina still had not answered the most dangerous question. Outside, Seoul moved on. Traffic flowed. Lights burned. The city breathed without pause. Somewhere, decisions were being made that would reshape everything. Somewhere, consequences were accumulating. And Amina stood at the center of her small room, phone in hand, watching the clock count down. 6 hours. 5. 4. The choice was hers. But the cost had already been determined. She looked at her phone one last time, Han's number displayed on the screen. Then she set it down and turned back to the window. The rain continued. The city waited. And the question remained unanswered. She still hadn't answered the most dangerous question. What happens if she says no to everyone?